Why does a city on wooden poles below sea level grow richer? A canal ring holds the answer. The Leidsegracht cuts north from the Prinsengracht, lined with 17th-century houses whose narrow brick facades lean over the water. Boats nose into stone quays. Bicycles rest against iron railings on every bridge. This is the Grachtengordel, the canal belt laid out in the 1600s, when Amsterdam was the richest trading port in Europe. The houses were built for merchants who wanted to watch their goods arrive at the front door. The gabled roofs and hoist beams remain, used to lift furniture into upper floors, too narrow for stairs. Bicycles decorated with flowers sit on bridge railings along the canal ring. Baskets overflow with petunias. Below, tour boats glide past gabled houses that reflect in the water. As evening falls, the bridges light up and the canal surface turns dark and glossy, catching warm glow from windows. The Amstel River cuts through the southern edge of the ring, its banks lined with older houses that once belonged to brewers and shipbuilders. The water moves slowly here, barely a current, and the reflections hold long after the boats have passed. In autumn, the lime trees along the canals turn yellow and copper. Leaves collect in the gutters and float on the dark water. Tour boats run, their wakes rocking the smaller vessels moored along the quays. The stone bridges carry bicycles in every direction, riders leaning into the wind. At sunset, the canal surfaces turn orange and pink, holding the sky for a few minutes before the light fades. The houses along these waterways date from the 1600s and 1700s, their facades stained by centuries of rain and canal damp. The canal system forms 4 half-circles around the old center, each ring connected by narrower cross-canals. The layout reads like a diagram, water streets radiating outward in orderly arcs. The houses between them wear traditional colors: brown, white, ochre, dark green, the result of a 1600s law requiring owners to paint facades in fixed tones so the city looked uniform. Trees fill the gaps between buildings. Boats thread through the waterways in steady lines, following routes that have not changed in 4 centuries. The houses on Damrak lean forward and sideways, tilting at angles that look wrong but hold firm. People call them the dancing houses. They were built on wooden piles driven into soft clay, and over centuries the pile shifted. The fronts lean out over the canal, partly because the ground settled unevenly, partly because builders tilted the facades to save space on narrow lots. At night, the city center glows with street lamps and window light. By dawn, the Amstel turns silver, and the rooftops catch the first pale sun. The Oude Church stands in the oldest part of Amsterdam, surrounded by narrow streets and small canals. Built in the early 1300s as a wooden chapel, it grew into a Gothic hall church over 2 centuries. Its tower rises above the red tile roofs of the old center, a landmark for sailors who once navigated the harbor. At golden hour, the brick walls turn warm amber, and the canal water catches the same light, doubling the glow. Electric boats glide through the canals in silence, their batteries replacing the old diesel engines that once stained the water with oil. The narrow canals of the old district wind between houses whose upper floors nearly touch across the water. At sunset, the cityscape turns warm and hazy, the brick facades glowing against a pale sky. The Bloemenmarkt floats on the single canal, its stalls built on houseboats. Bicycles park along the quay, while a small boat drifts past at sunset. The Munttoren, the Mint Tower, stands where the Amstel meets the Single. Built in the 1600s as part of the city gate, it later minted coins. Cruise boats pass below, carrying passengers through the canal ring, past facades that have watched the water for 4 centuries. Amsterdam has more than 1,200 bridges crossing its canals. Most are plain brick arches, built for pedestrians and bicycles. The Magere Brug, the skinny bridge, spans the Amstel with a narrow wooden deck that opens for tall masts. It was first built in 1691 and rebuilt in the same style in the 1930s. At night, its lamps cast twin rows of light on the water. Boats wait below when the bridge swings open, engines idling in the dark. Amsterdam Central sits on an artificial island at the edge of the old center, its red brick facade facing the Eye Harbor. Designed by P.J.H. Kuipers and opened in 1889, the station replaced the old harbor quays with a Gothic Renaissance terminal that connected the city to the national rail network. Boats still dock along its flanks, and at night, the illuminated facade reflects in the water, a wall of warm light against the dark harbor. The National Opera and Ballet, known as the Stapera, rises beside the Waterloo Plain, where several canals converge. Its curved facade mirrors the water. The Rijksmuseum opened in 1885, a long brick building spanning a street and a canal. Its archway lets pedestrians and bicycles pass through the middle of the museum. The collection holds Rembrandt's Night Watch and works by Vermeer and Hulse. The building is a landmark, a mix of Gothic and Renaissance styles by the same architect who built Central Station. Behind it, Museum Square spreads as a flat green lawn, bordered by the Van Gogh Museum and the Concertgebouw. People cross it on foot, on bicycles, and on skateboards. Museum Square sits at the heart of Amsterdam's cultural district. Its open lawn draws locals and visitors who cross between the Rijksmuseum, the Concertgebouw, and the Van Gogh Museum. The Amstel River widens as it enters the city, its banks lined with gabled houses and modern apartments. Boats dock at wooden quays where the current slows. A houseboat painted black, white, and orange floats on the Oude Wall Canal. Its reflection doubles in the still water, a home moored to the quay. The Uhlander Bridge arcs over the Amsterdam-Rhine Canal in Diemen, a steel bowstring span carrying cyclists and pedestrians across the waterway that links the city to the Rhine. The tulip fields outside Amsterdam stretch in long rows of pink, yellow, and white. Dutch growers plant them in sandy soil along the coast, harvesting millions of stems each spring. Closer to the city, Artist Zoo keeps flamingos in a pond shaded by old trees, the birds standing one-legged in the still water. Amstelpark spreads along the river in the south of the city. 2 emus graze on its lawns, surrounded by dense trees and a quiet pond where the city noise fades. Red houseboats line the canal, hulls faded by weather. They sit low in the water, tied to iron rings in the brick quay. A cruise boat rounds a bend, wake rippling past moored houseboats. Passengers watch the gabled facades slide by at the pace of the water. Across the IJ Harbor, Amsterdam North lights up at dusk. The Edam Tower glows above the waterfront, and the Eye Museum reflects in the dark water beside it. Overhooks rises on the north bank, glass towers reflected in calm water. Amsterdam began on poles in a swamp. It still builds on water, still grows.